My best friend and my husband were planning to take my house. The first sign wasn't a text message, it wasn't lipstick, it wasn't late nights. It was paperwork. Cold, legal, calculated paperwork. My name is Vanessa. I've been married to Eric for 10 years, and my best friend, Olivia, has been in my life for 15. She stood next to me at my wedding. She helped me pick the house we live in. The house that was legally in my name, the house they tried to take from me. The house wasn't a marital asset in the traditional sense. My grandmother left it to me before I got married. It was inherited, protected, separate property. Eric always joked about it. Guess I married into real estate, he'd laugh. I thought it was harmless. Olivia loved the house. You're so lucky, she'd say, running her hand across the kitchen counter. I'd never leave this place. That sentence echoes differently now. 3 months ago, Eric started pushing for financial restructuring. Tax benefits, he said, smart planning. He wanted to move the property into a shared family trust for liability protection. I hesitated. It felt unnecessary. The house was safe. He insisted. Olivia agreed. He's right, she told me over coffee. It's smarter long term. I trusted her more than anyone. That was my first mistake. The paperwork appeared slowly. Trust agreements, retitling discussions, draft amendments. I didn't sign immediately. Something felt off. Eric grew impatient. Why are you suddenly suspicious? He asked. I'm not suspicious. Then sign. That word hit differently. Not consider, not review, sign. A week later, I came home early from work. Eric wasn't there. Olivia's car was parked outside. That wasn't unusual. She visited often. But when I walked inside, I heard voices upstairs. Not laughter. Whispers. I climbed halfway before stopping. Once it's transferred, it's automatic, Eric said. And she won't even know until it's finalized, Olivia replied. My blood went cold. I didn't move. She trusts you, Eric continued. That's the point, Olivia said quietly. The point. I felt the floor tilt under me. I walked down silently, left the house, sat in my car, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly foolish, not heartbroken, strategically betrayed, because this wasn't emotional, it was financial, planned, layered. When they came downstairs, they acted normal. Olivia hugged me. Eric kissed my cheek. The performance was seamless. That's what hurt the most. Not the betrayal, the coordination. That night, I didn't confront them. I opened my laptop instead, accessed the draft trust documents Eric had emailed earlier, and I read every word. Buried inside the language was a clause. Upon transfer into the trust, property control defaults to the managing trustee. The managing trustee, Eric. Not me. It was elegant. Once signed, the house would technically belong to the trust, and he would control the trust. If we divorced, he would argue shared asset management, and Olivia? She was listed as successor trustee in case of incapacity. Incapacity. That word made my hands shake. This wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't romance. This was a takeover. And I had almost signed it. It was never just about the house. That night, I barely slept. Not because I was heartbroken, because I was thinking strategically. If Eric and Olivia were coordinating legal control, there had to be communication. People who plan betrayals leave trails. They just assume you'll never look. The next morning, I acted normal. Coffee, small talk, routine. Eric kissed my forehead before leaving for work. "Don't forget to review the trust draft," he reminded me casually. I smiled. "I will." I already had. Olivia texted around noon. "Lunch later?" The audacity was almost impressive. I agreed. Not because I wanted to see her, but because I needed to watch her. When someone lies, their eyes change. You just have to look long enough. At lunch, she was warm, comfortable, too comfortable. "You seem distracted," she said, "just tired." "Eric worries about you." I almost laughed. Eric worries about my signature, not my well-being. "You think the trust is a good idea?" I asked lightly. "Of course," she said instantly. "Why?" "It protects you. Protects me." That word again. Protection is often the disguise of control. That evening, I accessed Eric's laptop. He wasn't careless, but he was arrogant. He assumed I wouldn't check. There were deleted messages, but not fully deleted. Cloud backups remain when people forget synchronization settings, and that's where I found them. Hundreds of messages between him and Olivia. Not just legal discussions, not just paperwork, late-night texts, private jokes, photos, emotional intimacy layered with strategy. The affair wasn't new, it had been building for months. One message made my stomach tighten. "Eric, once it's in the trust, it's simple. If she resists later, we have leverage. Olivia, she won't suspect anything. She trusts me more than anyone. Leverage, not love, not regret, leverage." They weren't just planning divorce, they were planning control. Further down, I saw something even worse. "Eric, if she files first, the trust protects us." Olivia, "And if she doesn't?" Eric, "Then we push, slowly." Push, like I was a negotiation, not a wife, not a friend, an asset. The house wasn't the only topic. There were discussions about equity loans, about using the property value to fund a new start. A new start. Together. In my house. Or rather, in the house they planned to reclassify. The affair. Details hurt, but not in the way you think. I wasn't shocked they were sleeping together. I was shocked by the calm calculation. They weren't impulsive, they were strategic. Every romantic message was followed by legal coordination, love and law intertwined. That's what made it chilling. I closed the laptop slowly, not trembling, not crying, just clear. This wasn't about saving my marriage, it was about protecting my inheritance, my grandmother's house, the only place that ever felt permanent. They thought I was emotional, soft, naive. They forgot something. I was the legal owner, and I hadn't signed. The next day, Eric brought up the trust again. "We need to finalize this," he said. "Time-sensitive tax window." I nodded slowly. I'll meet with the attorney personally. His smile faltered. You don't need to. Yes, I replied calmly. I do. That's when I saw the first flash of fear. Not because he loved me, because I was moving independently. That night Olivia called unexpectedly. You're not doubting the trust, are you? She asked, concern disguised as support. Why would I doubt it? I replied. Just make sure you don't talk to anyone who doesn't understand the structure. Anyone who doesn't understand. Translation: anyone outside our plan. I didn't sleep much after that, because the truth was simple now. They weren't just having an affair. They were building an exit strategy, one that left me legally cornered. If I signed, if I trusted, if I stayed quiet. But I wasn't going to do any of those things. I let them think I signed. The next morning, I scheduled a meeting with an attorney, not Eric's attorney, not the one who drafted the trust, an independent one, a woman recommended by a colleague who specialized in asset protection and marital litigation. I brought everything: the draft trust, the messages, screenshots, backup, files. She read quietly, slowly. Then she looked at me and said, "They're not just planning divorce. I know. They're planning to pre-position control. I know." She leaned back in her chair. "Good news, you haven't signed. That matters. It matters more than anything." She explained what Eric was attempting. By transferring the property into a trust where he was managing trustee, he would gain operational control. Even if ownership technically remained within the trust structure, decision-making authority would shift to him. If divorce followed, he could argue joint management. He could slow proceedings, delay liquidation, leverage occupancy. It wouldn't make him full owner, but it would give him power. And power is expensive in court. "Can we reverse it?" I asked. She smiled slightly. "There's nothing to reverse." That's when I understood something powerful. Their entire plan depended on my cooperation. Without my signature, it was useless. But we didn't stop there. "Let's make them think you signed," she said. I blinked. "Excuse me?" "We'll draft a counter-trust." The strategy was surgical. We created a revocable asset protection trust, one where I remained sole managing trustee, irrevocable upon filing of divorce. And here's the critical part. Once transferred into my structure, the property could not be reassigned without my authorization, not even by a spouse. But I didn't tell Eric that. Instead, I scheduled a signing day, invited him, invited Olivia. "I've reviewed everything," I said calmly at dinner, "and I'm ready to move forward." Eric tried to hide his relief. Olivia squeezed my hand under the table. "We're doing the right thing," she whispered. The irony almost made me laugh. The signing took place at the attorney's office, but not the one they expected. Eric seemed confused when he saw a different name on the door. "It's just a scheduling issue," I said smoothly. He hesitated. Olivia stayed quiet. She was watching, calculating. The documents were placed in front of me. I signed, carefully, slowly, and Eric signed afterward, without reading deeply, because he assumed he understood the structure. That was his mistake. 2 weeks later, Eric brought up divorce. Casually, strategically. "I think we both deserve honesty," he said. Honesty. That word again. "I agree," I replied. "I've already spoken to an attorney." "So have I." His expression flickered, just slightly. When his attorney reviewed the property structure, something changed. Eric called me that night. "What did you do?" "I signed the trust." "That's not the same document." "No," I said calmly. "It's not." He tried to argue, tried to claim confusion, but the paperwork was clear. The property was now secured under a structure he had no authority over, no operational control, no leverage, no co-management clause, nothing. Olivia called me later. "You manipulated him." I laughed softly. "No, I protected myself." "You tricked us." "No," I corrected. "You underestimated me." Silence followed, because there was no comeback to that. The divorce filing came a week later, without confidence, without leverage. Eric had lost the house before the case even began. And Olivia, she lost her strategy, but the exposure wasn't finished, because secrets don't stay quiet long, and I wasn't done. They thought I would be the easy one. Once the divorce papers were officially filed, the tone shifted. Eric was no longer confident, no longer strategic. He was reactive. His entire plan had depended on control, and control had slipped. During mediation, his attorney tried to argue for partial access to the house. Mr. Bennett contributed to maintenance and household expenses. My attorney responded calmly. The property was inherited prior to marriage and is now secured in a legally structured asset protection trust. Clean, precise, final. There was no legal angle left, no loophole, no leverage. Eric's face hardened, not angry, cornered. Olivia stopped contacting me after that, not because she felt guilt, because she felt exposed. Affairs are thrilling in secrecy, but embarrassing in daylight light. Mutual friends started asking questions. Why was Olivia suddenly distant? Why was Eric moving into a downtown apartment? Stories began unraveling. Truth has a way of leaking. I didn't publicly accuse them. I didn't post screenshots. I didn't create drama. But when someone asked directly, I didn't lie. Eric and Olivia grew closer than appropriate, I would say. That sentence was enough. People fill in the rest. And once doubt attaches to someone's character, it lingers. The divorce finalized within 6 months. Eric, left with his personal assets. Shared accounts were divided evenly, but the house, untouched, protected, exactly where it belonged. He tried one final appeal. "You don't have to make this difficult," he said during our last meeting. I looked at him carefully. "You made it difficult when you tried to take what wasn't yours." He didn't respond, because the truth didn't favor him anymore. Olivia attempted to rebuild socially, but friendships built on betrayal have expiration dates. If she could coordinate against me, who else could she coordinate against? Trust evaporates quickly in social circles. She learned that the hard way. Months later, I heard they weren't together anymore. It didn't surprise me. They weren't bonded by love. They were bonded by conspiracy. And once the plan failed, so did the connection. Schemes create intensity, but they rarely create loyalty. One afternoon, I stood in my kitchen, sunlight through the windows. The same counters Olivia once admired, the same walls Eric once tried to control, and I felt something unexpected. Not triumph, not revenge, clarity. They thought I was emotional, soft, naive. They mistook kindness for weakness and trust for ignorance. That was their final mistake. Betrayal isn't always loud. Sometimes it's paperwork. Sometimes it's whispers upstairs. Sometimes it's a trust document waiting for your signature. And sometimes it's your best friend and your husband assuming you won't read the fine print. But I did. And because I did, they lost the only thing they were trying to take: control. I didn't lose my house. I didn't lose my inheritance. I didn't lose myself. They lost access, and access was all they ever wanted.